All right, welcome to another episode of the Prep Coach podcast. We are missing MG.
Man down.
We decided to do a majority vote to vote him out, and he's now left, so he's gone. No, I'm joking. He had his eye appointment because obviously he's still struggling a little bit with that. So I think that's pretty important that he gets that sorted out. So we're down, but I'm sure he'll be back next week, hopefully. And we wish him a speedy recovery on that. But want to thank everyone for all the positivity that we got from the last potty. There was actually a couple of questions that people asked afterwards. They messaged and they said, how did men's fitness come about? Because that's something that we didn't cover last time, and also testing, because that's something that we implemented that we didn't cover either in last week's potty. So men's fitness, you're the man who kind of pioneered it. So do you want to talk about that chart, that height and weight chart that you came up with for men's fitness?
Yeah, well, men's fitness with some of the other feds was big, and obviously in the early days, that's what I obviously used to compete in, and there was definitely a demand for that. And I think natural bodybuilding now obviously has different entry levels. Once upon a time it was just bodybuilding, but now you've got men's fitness, men's physique, classic, and obviously bodybuilding. So there was definitely a gap, I think, and there was a lot of my athletes. This is before we were even involved with NBA that were wanting to probably do men's fitness, but they just weren't big enough to do men's physique. And so they were kind of not able to really do that federation. And so we obviously made the suggestion that we should look at introducing men's fitness and then wanting to have that differentiation between, we use the example, men's physique is like the heavyweight and men's fitness is like the lightweight.
Hence why they still use the shorts.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
The shorts are exactly the same. The criteria is the same. It's just basically like a smaller version.
Yeah.
And so with the weight to height cap ratio, I actually used some of my own athletes, and actually even used MG for an example. For example, like his height, where his weight was, and then if you had someone that was too big. So for example, I'd used my height, my weight from, back when competing, athletes like Ethan and Thelina. So you had some real life examples of some top tiered fitness pros where they would be at. And then if you had some, bigger athletes that maybe if they wanted to try and shrink down, you need to sort of, virtually make it impossible for that person so that you do have some segregation between the two. But I think, it was obviously definitely a good decision because men's fitness along with bikini is probably one of our bigger divisions now. And I think it's good for natural bodybuilding that a lot more feds, well, not all feds, but, us, ICN, and I don't know if any,
I don't know.
I don't
The
know if
others
any
have
likes.
them, or they might have a version of it.
Actually, no, that Ethan did an A&B show on the weekend. They have it, but it's a bit of a different criteria, different look.
And they use Euro shorts, don't they? I think ICN use the Euro shorts as well.
They do. They have the short shorts, so it's a little bit different with the criteria, and so I think it just gives people that pathway. Like we have a lot of guys that come through and they'll start with fitness and they go to physique, and then once you're in physique, you can really cross over to anywhere.
So, well, we actually made that crossover, and you
actually, yeah, technically you can with men's fitness now too. That was obviously you've got the ability now to do, say Ethan's a perfect example, someone who is men's fitness. But he also has that aesthetic to be able to do classic because he's got great wheels. So you can actually bounce between the two. But we obviously have the rule that you can't do more than two categories. So you couldn't do fitness, physique, and classic. You got to pick which one.
Because it used to be you could make it simple version. You could do a category up or a category down.
Yeah.
But with men's fitness and physique, they can both go into classic.
Correct.
And vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't do three. They've got to pick two of the three. Almost like wellness, sports, and fitness.
Yeah.
They kind of all are together. You can only pick two of the three, but they can all cross compete in between those categories there. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you looked at the weight caps and the height, I know you said you used your own data. Did you go back to when you were a fitness competitor? Yeah. Looked at that data and then looked at your recent data? Yes.
So I did when I was putting together, again, because obviously my stage weight, say from 2017 when I did men's fitness and got my my pro card in men's fitness, I compared where was my weight then, and actually even used as an example in 2020 as well, like where was that, because that was when I made the jump from fitness to pro physique. And so the using that, and I remember MG was one as well because he's relatively tall, and there was a difference between obviously his height and my height were relatively similar, but there was a big difference between our stage weight. So using that as an example where he is someone that could still probably fit that criteria, still look the part, But obviously, if I was to do that, and so having that difference, and then just breaking it down into the centimeters, and then making sure that we had that as a blueprint, and it's pretty bang on to be honest.
Yeah.
I think like when you look at some of the athletes that, even some of the ones this season that had to really suck down to make weight, though, and I think that's the thing. If you're really having to dig beyond like your limit, like to do a 5-6 kilo weight cut in the week of the show, you're probably better off jumping into men's physique. But also then if you are doing that, I think it gives some of the other competitors a bit more of an advantage, because obviously it means they haven't had to really grind that hard to make it. Like I know Dan Ecto from WA, he looked awesome. He won the overall for men's fitness, but I know he had to really dig really, really hard to make that. He looked awesome, credit to him. But I think even that alone, he was like, I reckon it's pretty hard for me to stay in men's fitness. So the next time he'd probably jump up to physique because it was just too much of a slog.
He's a pro in ICN. What pro card does he have?
He's an ICN fitness pro.
He's a fitness pro. Okay, cool.
Yep,
that makes sense.
Pro.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But then on the other side of it, when you get some athletes like, say, Braden, who actually won, he's also a fitness pro, but he did men's physique. But again, different shape, different muscularity. And that's the thing. There's just so much variance, I think, in that men's fitness division. You look at guys like him, Braden, he's very, very complete. He's got a crazy physique. And then even, look at guys, say, like Ethan, for example, who we've, for example, made the decision that you can't, after this season, you're done with men's fitness because you're outgrown. You're ready to take that next step.
Yeah.
And I think that's the evolution. That's what you want, to get to a point where you've done that and then you move on to the next thing.
Do you think, and obviously we're not judges, but do you think there's a component of you make the cap, but you're too muscular for fitness?
Well, for him, I and again, he's probably one of the outliers. I think, yeah, potentially, because, I mean, looking at him, although, potentially, maybe not. I mean, he obviously won in Bali, but he got pipped in nationals, in pro fitness. Very different physique, the guy that beat him. He looked amazing as well. But for me, his physique, because he's got such big wheels, he holds a lot of that tissue there, but he was still almost maybe not a kilo, maybe like 800 grams out of the cap. We didn't have to do anything drastic. He still like loaded into it. So he made that comfortably. But seeing him he did some other feds, amateur, men's physique and classic. And he came second to the guy who won the overall. So he was in that conversation, but also seeing him in that light, I'm like, you're definitely in that convo. And even he did the pro show in Bali for classic physique and placed third. Like, he didn't look out of place.
No.
And that's why another 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be, I know that he'll come back, and he's someone that's very much process driven, as I think most good athletes are, rather than focusing on a specific, tangible outcome. I need to win and I want this title. It's more, I want to present something better, and that's what you're moving towards.
I tell you this every single time Ethan's on stage, is I can't stop looking at him. Like, he's just so aesthetically pleasing, but also to just his muscularity on that frame is just so impressive.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is so impressive. So I'm excited that now you've said, okay, the shackles are off, no more men's fitness. Let's send it. So it's early days because he's still prepping, right? Because is he doing?
So he just finished. He did the show on the weekend, and so he's got an Indonesian show. The name of where it is escapes me, but it's basically the week of Christmas. And so,
wow,
his partner is Jess is from Indonesia, and so their family are there, and so he wanted to just do a show there, take in the culture and the experience. So we've got a bit of a job ahead of us. We've brought his food back up. He's already started to regain some fat mass and some body weight over the next 2 weeks, and then he'll cruise for a week, and then we'll basically start to just gradually come back down again into December. So that, because originally he was like, I reckon I can just keep going, and I'm like,
no, you can't.
It's a long time. And it's not in your best interest. So
no, of course not.
Yeah, and it's a long season. Bearing in mind that he actually did an INBA show in August to qualify for the Olympia, because he was going to go to America, but his partner couldn't get a visa. So he was like, all right, what else can I do? Yeah. Which, credit to him. And granted, he's at a very good prep. Nothing's too hard for him. He's very much, if I said, Ethan, go outside and eat the grass, he'd go and eat the grass. So, what division is he going to do over there? Like, do you know? I don't even know. I think it's a Muscle Mania or some type.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't even know if he knows. He's been messaging the Instagram page to try and get information, because I'm probing him saying, what does it look like? What are some of the physiques that we need to, so that I can do some research. I don't even think he knows. So he'll hopefully get that in the next sort of week or so, and then we can start to plan. But I think they have a Euro. I think they call it sport or fit model or something like that. They have a division. They have this division where it's like streetwear with jeans, which he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And obviously he doesn't want to hide his legs.
Sure.
So he'll do the next one up. But again, it's not for.
It's like a muscle model because
I think so.
in China they have that as well. It's a muscle model.
Yeah.
It kind of sits between men's physique and classic for them.
Yeah.
And it's in a Euro short. And it's funny because it's half turns.
Okay.
But you don't hold a pose. You continue to pose as you're in that turn. So think of it more like an FMG style.
Okay.
Where you turn around to the back, but you're constantly changing your poses, and then you get turned to the front and you're constantly changing your poses. Might see him doing some FMG style posing.
To be fair, he loves that stuff. But
oh, does he?
Yeah, he loves doing. He does some of those crazy. He does this thing like with his hands. I always call it spirit fingers. But I just said, man, if you want to do it, do it. Obviously, it's a long time. But he just said to me, how would we make that happen? And I'm like, well, we need to come up for air, chill out for a couple of weeks, which will be good for you as well. Like he went and had a little bit of food on the night of his show, and then I said to him, you got to take your partner out for breakfast, which she was rapt about.
Yeah,
and
of course.
You just go back to your baseline refeed diet, and so that'll be the plan. And then he'll have to come back down, but it's a long prep. I think about that being he wasn't 100% in August, but he was in good condition and he was starting to feel some of those effects. So to stay that lean from August to December,
it's crazy.
It's almost like that COVID prep. So
it's funny because what you're kind of doing now with him is almost like bridging between a season, and it's almost like the summer season. You know, we just got spring.
Yeah.
If there was a summer season, it's almost like bridging between spring and summer. So you're kind of coming up for air and then go back down again.
Yeah, exactly. So, and most importantly, he was the one and he really wants to do it. So, and it's good. To be honest, it's the first time I've had someone have that, because it's not a long gap, but it's not a short gap either. Like you think about we were start of November. So it's almost like 7 weeks between shows when you're.
That's like the season, but between the seasons,
it's pretty bang on. So, but I think he'll be fine. It'll be cool. But yeah, I'll have to get the name of where it is. I don't know. It's like a little island or something like that off through there. So anyway, he's really excited for it. So
we're watching. The last one was testing. People asked you didn't discuss the changes that you made with testing. Obviously, something that you and MG pioneered. And obviously MG has been managing that relationship with that company. But obviously it's something that you vetted. We're probably the best person to vet it in the company. Looking at all the research and things like that. So that was one of the key changes that we made this year.
Yeah, the ocular testing, because I think for all of us, as a collective, we were all like, it's frustrating. We're spending all this money for urine analysis and we're never going to catch anyone out. And the protocols are so strict, and even a lot of people don't even realize, but to have someone conduct a drug test and for it to be, legit and certified, you technically should actually have someone that's certified to do that. And so obviously I didn't love doing that because I am UCAD certified, because I had to do all of that when I was in the UK, and handling urine and taking samples is not my ideal way of spending a show day. So
but also too, you're bogged down all day doing that. Like you
don't leave, because you go and get someone, you explain the process, you fill in all the paperwork, and then before you know it, the next person's come through and you got to go again. So for me, but also knowing that even if someone was taking something, it's so easy for a compound to be, manipulated so that you could be on and you can be off. Urine testing, you're looking at a really short window of being able to catch someone. And then obviously I was like, why don't we look at hair testing? And
that's right, we did, yeah.
Yeah, because for me, I was like, if you really want to get someone, because you boys were like, what's the best way if we wanted to do it? I'm like, well, hair testing. But it's super expensive, but also there are ways around that too. If you had someone that had shaven off all their hair.
It's a little bit invasive.
Yeah, for sure. And so we wanted to try and find something in the middle, and then the ocular testing, and it was and still is in its infancy, but all of the peer review research on it that I looked at was really good, and I read through all of that, and then I obviously had the meeting with Steve, with MG, and then once I really took a deep dive on it and understood how it works, advanced telemetry, and just how the system learns from itself with every test, and obviously it detects blink rate, it detects obviously where your eyes are going, your response times, and so that kind of new technology that no one's looking at, but also we knew that it had been used and it had been vetted, and it is used by the FBI, by NASA, by the CIA, and it's used in the police force. And most people wouldn't even realize, but it's one of the ways that our government controls, sex offenders when they come out in terms of where they are. They ask these questions. And so for us, it was like, okay, well, how can we devise this system? We need to create our own intervention to make it bespoke to bodybuilding. These are the compounds. And so the whole process, it was a bit of fiddling around because we had to basically create a, a process that allowed us to identify the things that would be flagged as, being banned versus things that aren't, and how you could get people without having to read every single banned, wider compound. And then once we had sort of teased all those things out, and it was a process, we ran it. And again, the response was really good, but more importantly, we were able to get that information in real time. So you could run that test and we get the test results back, within an hour. And then being able to also give our industry some confidence, knowing that, this is a new form of testing, polygraphs and most polys. And this is what we were learning a lot from Steve about this. Most polys, when they're conducted, they're not worth the paper that they're printed on. A proper polygraph a proper polygraph test to try and conduct it takes, over an hour, but also the cost to run a proper one's $2,000 to $3,000, and the testing for someone to be certified to run it is closer to 40 to 50,000. So, you have to really argue. And again, if we're running this testing to try and make sure that we're keeping the sport clean, then we don't want to just pay money for the sake of paying it and letting people get through. We want to try and deter people from competing in a federation and competing in a sport that is meant for natural athletes. And so we saw, from a business perspective, it probably did hurt us a lot because we had regos and we had athletes that were going to do our shows, and we released and obviously put that reel up about, our ocular detection testing and how, we were able to use this advanced telemetry to be able to identify if people were or were not assisted. And then we did have a few athletes who just didn't do our shows.
Unregistered, didn't do our shows, asked, yep. And we also, and I know because I look at the emails, we had so many more exemption forms come through. People wanted to say, I'm on these medications, I've been doing this, I've been doing HRT, I've been doing whatever it is. And like just a flood of, which is great. Like, it's good that people are like, okay, this testing is going to catch me if I don't be honest. I've been taking these medications. I want to double check that it's all good. And we've had some other people saying, oh, I used SARMs like 2 years ago. Am I like, nah, sorry. Yeah, you could probably get through other ways, but not through our test. So we did start to get a lot of that as well.
There actually were a few that had been using SARMs and that will have to wait that 5-year window. Again, as an exogenous compound, if anyone was looking at doing that, it's the shittest thing that you like. It's just a waste of your money, and also it just ruins your status. And if you to then have to use something that does nothing for you, but also puts you on the sidelines for 5 years. But I think for us it was a game changer because, and it is obviously from a cost perspective, it is very expensive, but at least we all said that we're not afraid to lose some money and obviously maybe lose a few regos, but at least that way we know that we're keeping it a level playing field. And also as an athlete, you know that you have a fed that you can trust, and it is I can go and compete in this and say, yep, I know that everyone there is good to go. And again, I know that urine testing is still used, and they talk about, it's used in the Olympics, but so is hair testing.
Yeah.
And so that's used in an acute setting, and it's more so for people that are trying to use certain compounds if they need to make a weight cap, or it happens a lot more so in gymnastics and in weightlifting. But again, I actually think that long term, verifying this ocular detection testing will be the future. It'll be more so this, as well as looking at hair testing.
We also wanted to be transparent with the athletes as well, and actually prove that we're doing the test, and here's the result of the test as well.
Yeah.
So if you got tested this year by any natural federation, you should be asking for your results to verify the test was actually conducted. And that's what we were able to do every single time, and very, very quickly. So it's something that we definitely wanted to make sure that we try to, raise the standard in the industry that, you're going to get tested, but here's your results to prove the test was actually conducted.
Yeah. So, no, it's good, man. I think some people get a little bit nervous about it.
Yeah.
Like, because it's I can understand how you would be, even though you know that you've got nothing to worry about, but it's like it's something that's foreign. You don't really know.
Yeah.
And I even remember the first time that I was urine tested, and I was a bit like, oh, I think I had Panadol yesterday. And then I had to take a step back and be like, it's fine.
It's all good. Yeah, it's all good.
Fine.
All right, let's get into some questions. Do you ever turn away competitors if you don't think they are ready to compete? I don't think turn away, but advise them that it's not in the best interest of them to compete if they're not ready. And ready could be many things. Ready could be all the markers of they need to grow more, their metabolism needs to be in a better position, their mindset needs to be in a better position, their habits need to be in a better position. So we won't turn them away, but we'll advise, okay, I don't think you're ready yet. I think we need to wait till maybe this season, or we don't pick a season until we hit all these milestones. Do you have that too?
Yeah, I think it's more just changing, the lens they're looking at it through, rather than being like, I want to do 2026 season C. It's like, well, given where we're at, and ideally you would have already, been in or you're about to start your pre-prep period, that's probably not the best thing for you, given this is the criteria. I think for a lot of people, they just, also for people that have not competed before, they don't really understand, which is their fault. So part of that consult is also, there's an educational component where you're saying that what you want to do, let's say that it's 2027 season C. Let's reverse engineer it. Your prep's going to start around about March, April. You're also going to have a gain period from probably like December through to that point. You're going to have a pre-prep period from probably October to December. And that, if we look at October, and we're now in October now, that gives us, or in November, we've got 11 months to get better. So when you look at it like that, it's probably not a lot of time. They're like, okay, cool, I understand now. All right, cool. Let's look at 2027 season C.
That's the same conversation I have. I kind of reverse engineer it and go, look, you're saying, 2026 season C, let's step out what the phases are. And then when you said, maybe like, when you think about it, you don't have a lot of time. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe we can wait for the next season. And I normally say to them, let's get through that milestone and talk about the next one after that. And then talk about the next one after that. Instead of promising, it's definitely locked in, and then go from there.
Yeah, and one of the things that I also look at is, you might say, let's say we use that example, someone wants to do next year, and you're like, I think in reality, 2028 A is probably a better model for you. But rather than ruling out C, let's spend a really good 10, 11 months of getting better. Let's, again, iron out any wrinkles, make sure that we're, being a good physique athlete. We're doing all the non-negotiables, laying down those foundations. Then let's run the pre-prep phase. Let's take a look underneath the hood, see where we have acquired tissue, where we haven't. If we're both like, you know what, I reckon we're within probably 12 to 14% of stage weight, I reckon we're in a good spot. We probably could compete. I reckon there's enough there. But if you're like, honestly, you'll be able to compete, but you're not going to be at that level where you want to be at. Give me another 6 months. Let's continue to do all the things that we're doing, and then let's go again. And that more or less helps to inform, that decision, and I think allows the athlete to also see where that is. Because I think if you're just like, nah, just do 2028 season A, they don't really see that as why. Versus if you can show them through that phasic approach what that will look like and what we're going to do in that time, and also creates an element of urgency as well around that. I've only got X amount of time. I can't afford to waste a single session. Every single day, every meal counts. I use the example of a training session, a meal consumed, their deposits, missing those things, their withdrawals. At the end of the day, the bigger the balance, the more you're going to be able to cash in when it comes time to run it. So
yeah, definitely. How do you calculate your client's stage weight? Are you ever drastically wrong or surprised? It is a tricky one, especially when you haven't worked with someone before. But I think you just get better over time as you work with more people. And then for me, in my mind, I'm like, oh, you're similar to that person that I worked with. And I've worked with a couple of those people that have that type of physique. They want to do that category. They're that similar height, muscularity. That's where they landed. You're probably going to land somewhere there. That's there's no real science to it. It's just like over time you get better at predicting someone's stage weight based on your experience. Are you kind of see the same?
Yeah, man, it's experience. I mean, you can use markers, like I said, from a pre-prep phase that will usually give you an indication, pulling down, and even then, it's an estimation where you anticipate they're going to need to be, where you want to wrap up, where you think they're roughly 10 to 12% above stage weight. But you might get to there and be like, do you know what? I thought you were only going to be maybe 6 or 7 off here, but in reality, you're probably like 9 or 10. So this is where you're going to need to be. But more often than not, when you have any athlete, obviously when we coach a lot of athletes like we do, you've got someone in every division who's roughly around that size, and that plus or minus 1 or 2 kilos is where you're going to be. So
do you ever use any kind of scans or anything to predict? Like, do you ever say, go get a DEXA and then from there I can predict it better?
Nah, because even then there's a lot of variance with DEXAs, and obviously depending on where you're getting them from, people that use bioimpedance, not to say that they're bad or that they're wrong, but it's just there's a margin of accuracy. And so for me, and you'd be the same doing this as long as we have, the there's not really that much that a DEXA can tell me that my eyes can't, just through looking at photos and just knowing that, even though you're here, you've still got X amount that needs to come off there. I can see that, the top is, they're like, oh, but I'm really lean from the top. It's like, yeah, but there's no glute ham tie-in. You haven't got, lines or cuts through here. And in reality, this is where we're going to be. And more often than not, especially when I have a consult with someone for the first time and they send me their photos, and they'll usually send me their previous stage photos and their stage weight. And I'll say to them, to be honest, this is probably, if I'm prepping you based on that, this is probably where you need to land. And then I'm almost like, are you serious? Yeah. Like even Jan, for example, her last show, I remember when I had that conversation with her and she was about 5 kilos lighter than her last prep. Remember, she was like, I'm never going to get down to that. I'm like, well, that's where you're going to need to be if you want to be competitive. And a lot of them are like that, but it is what it is. It's not that you're chasing a number, you're chasing a look, but it's more, I know that the look is going to be tightly correlated with a body weight range of roughly this.
It's funny when you have those conversations because normally you give them a stage weight lighter than what they were, but they've been in an off season for X amount of years and grew all this muscle. They're like, how does that work? Like I've been improving, growing all this muscle, and you're going to say I'm going to be lighter than what I was last time when I felt I was pretty lean last time. You're like, well, there's levels. There's levels you've got to go to. How do you know when you're pushing through that exhausted phase? Is it building resilience versus doing harm? Can postponing a show sometimes lead to better long-term outcomes physically and mentally? So how do you know if you should be pushing through like a really, really tough phase in their prep? Are you just building resilience with them, or are you doing some damage?
As in they're in contest prep?
Yeah. Obviously, everyone's a little bit different because you'll have some people that you learn when you coach is like they will never complain. And you can and when they do, you're like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously because they've never complained ever. They're really, really resilient, but now they're telling me that they're feeling flat, exhausted, tired, hungry, X, Y, Z. Sometimes when I get those, I'm like, okay, I know you're being serious and you're not being a pussy about it. Okay, maybe we're time to take the foot off the pedal a little bit, less cardio, more food, let's give it back to the system. But there's some people that are maybe a little bit more vocal than others in how they're feeling. And sometimes it just comes down to the art of coaching of, okay, got to motivate you to keep pushing. Like there's levels to this, as you said, and we're going to keep going. It's really difficult to know if you're just building resilience or whether you're doing any damage. But I think we're pretty good at knowing whether we're pushing someone a little bit too hard and causing some kind of physical or mental damage. Do you ever find that with some people you know when to push, when to pull?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's also the advantage of working with the athlete for years prior to the contest prep. Like I can honestly say I don't have anyone that I don't really take people on now if they're like, oh, I want to compete. Say it's January, I want to compete this year. I'm going to do season C. Well, not with me or not, because I don't have, but also because in order for me to be able to get you to where you want to get to, I don't have enough background information unless there was someone that was really meticulous. They have all of that data.
Yeah.
They've done everything on their own. And they're just like, I just want you to steer the ship from this point. Maybe there's an exception to that rule, but I think it's just, it's such an important piece to need to be able to do that. So, and I think you just have to be able to, your athlete, and that's also part of developing that rapport with the athlete. And then again, being mindful and not just some of the quality, like again, you're going by what they're saying, but for me, I'll also look at some other markers. For example, is sleep compromised? Is training performance still good? Is recovery still good? If a lot of those things, and especially if recovery is drastically diminished and sleep is compromised and someone's saying they're starting to feel a bit beat up, then they're markers that I'll look at. Well, then, okay, let's come up for air for a little bit, but also explaining to them that this is the rationale behind that. People that are saying that's hard and I'm tired, I use the example, it's like going swimming and playing that you got wet because you've signed up for this. At the end of the day, we're asking your body to train hard, to do everything to the best of your ability, but doing it in a suboptimal environment that is, an energy deficit. So it's completely counterintuitive to what most people will do. You want to perform optimally, you fuel optimally, but obviously you're taking the fueling away, or at least you're trying to devise an intervention that keeps you in a deficit but still allows you to fuel for your training. But yeah, you really just have to know your athlete, and then hopefully you've got enough background information that you can decipher between when someone is just maybe needing to just suck it up a little bit more versus someone that maybe just, you need to get them out of their own way, because there's
Yeah.
definitely those athletes too.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I can push through it.
Yes. Yeah. Have you ever found that you've had to pull someone out of a prep because of the way they were feeling and they were exhausted and they just couldn't go anymore?
Yeah.
And or is there any other reason that you've had to pull someone out? Like for me, I can't remember the last time that's happened that hasn't been like a health issue, like they've gotten the shingles or something like some kind of real health concern where it's like not related to prep, but they're now, or I've had someone, their appendix ruptured. It's like their prep's done.
Yeah,
Right? Like, there's nothing you can do about it. But I don't remember a time where I've completely pulled someone out because they were done, like exhausted, couldn't go anymore, and they were finished.
Yeah, I have, and it's because, again, more so putting the person ahead of the athlete in terms of their well-being, again, where they were at, and being transparent, saying we're not even close to where we need to be at. And in reality, the toll that this is taking, you questioning, do I want to do this? All of those things are red flags.
Yeah.
Just because you don't get on stage, it's not the end of the world. Doesn't mean you're a bad person or that you failed or anything like that. It's just something that you've got to weigh up. Is you continuing to pursue this for the next 8 weeks? There's a cost to that. And if you're not willing to pay that tax, then for me, it's better and for you to look after your emotional, your psychological health. Again, at the end of the day, stage will always be there. If it's not this time around, maybe that you can come back. But it happens rarely, but for me, it has happened. Yeah, it has happened.
Okay. This is about training age and, being a little bit older, but more training age versus being younger and maybe having some newbie gains. So I've noticed there's a lot of success in the middle-aged athletes. I'm early 30s and I started training when I was 38. Thoughts on years of training versus younger bodies putting on muscle fast and obviously earning pro cards or being very, very successful. Can you hit your peak in your later years, or does being younger help? So I think the way I read that question is you got someone that's young and maybe has age on their side, but they don't have the training age on their side, versus someone who is older, but they have a lot more training age. Is there a way that older person can beat that younger person?
For sure, there's two different, for me, there's two different ways that you can look at this. I think about it when you're younger. Firstly, your physiology is on your side. From a sex hormone production level, endogenous hormone levels are much, much higher. If you've got someone that is, one of my clients at the moment, using him as an example, his name's PJ, he's 17. And so I know without doubt when this kid's 23, he's going to be a freak. No one's going to touch him because he is learning how to train hard. He's learning how to eat properly. He's learning the importance of sleep. When he goes out with his mates, he knows that if he doesn't get the sleep that he needs, and if he consumes alcohol, his training the next day is going to be garbage. They're things that you and I would know. If we go out, I'm going to train legs tomorrow, I'm not drinking tonight, I'm not staying out late. But as a younger kid, again, endogenously, his hormone production is going to be elevated. But if he doesn't have the maturity or the behaviors that you learn as you get older to make him a better athlete, but when you can teach an athlete, and this kid's a perfect example of that, willing to do whatever it takes, and he's just growing like a weed. And there's so many more of them happening now because there's better information, their training, their nutritional literacy is getting better, and they're learning all of these low-hanging fruit, things that sometimes maybe you don't really realize until you're in your later 20s, you start to mature and calm down. And so you're seeing some of these freaks come up in their early 20s and they look ridiculous. But then the other side of it, you can have some people that are younger, genetically, they have a predisposition to acquire, rapid amounts of muscle at a young age, but they're not willing to go to sleep, to not feed properly, to not drink, to train hard. They want to take photos and Instagram versus someone who's in their late 30s that's willing to go to war every time they go into the gym. They're willing to get 8 hours sleep to do all those things. Absolutely. It just comes down, for me, it's just the person.
Yeah, I agree too. We talk about like, can you outwork genetics? Can you outwork talent? You definitely can. Like, as you said, if you've got someone that has all the talent, has all the genetics going for them, but they don't put in the work, you have someone that maybe is in a suboptimal state, but does all those things, when they hit the stage, definitely they can win. And you have a look at some of those over 30s, over 40s, over 50 lineups. Sometimes they're the biggest lineups, but they're the most competitive as well. And those physiques are incredible. And then they go to win Masters, Pro Cards, or whatever. But then they also go into the pro show. We talked about Cal, right?
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah. Over 40. Looks incredible. So, but he puts in the work. Clearly, you can see that, right? So I don't think you need to worry so much about your age. It's more about the effort that you put in consistently over time.
Yeah, I think there's a few of those. I mean, you look at people like Cal, you look at Rocks from last season, Nerida, who's going this season. Some of those athletes that you look at, that a lot of these younger athletes could probably learn a thing or two. And if you have someone that's young that has enormous potential and has age on their side, if you're able to have someone like those three take you under their wing, then you're probably you're going to do damage in years to come.
All right, tips to nail the reverse diet post-comp and to get back to a healthy state before a build. How long to truly recover, and keys, do's and don'ts. How long to truly recover from a comp?
How long's a piece of string?
Yeah.
Depends how lean you are, really.
Yeah.
And how long you've been dieting for.
Would you say that by the time you get back to your improvement season weight, you should be mostly recovered? If you did it in a strategic stepwise approach, not you gained it all in 1 week.
Yeah, for sure. The only trade-off to that is, I would say, is with females and especially figure athletes. We know, through the case studies that are out there and the research, that there still is, it's a body composition thing, but it's also an energy availability thing, and your body just feeling safe again. And it's common that for some of them that have gotten really lean and they do all the right things, but their sex hormone production levels don't come back online for over a year. And that, again, it's bespoke to the individual. Yep. So
would you say that most people get back to their improvement season weight by around about 3, 4, 5, 6 months post-show?
Yeah, I think everyone's different. And also, as much as you do want to restore some fat mass, you don't want to go too quickly, and then, you run the risk of adiposity, hyperplasia, and things like that, where, you're not just filling up those fat cells, but now, they're differentiating, and now you've got more than when you started. But I think it's more, for me, there's too many people that are just too aloof and comp's done now, can go and do whatever you want. And I had to have one of those hard talks to one of my athletes yesterday around the importance of, there's still some goalposts up here. Like I've said to you, got to give me those first 2 weeks to get that right, because if you get those first 2 weeks right, you're going to be in a much better state to navigate the next 2 months. And if you get those first 2 months right, you're likely going to sail off into the off season without really too much recoil. But most people, I'd say most men, usually will feel good. But I think it's one of those things that time is also on your side with that. And I think most people, especially guys, you would just know. I know for me, for example, there's a certain body weight where I know I feel the best in terms of what I can do in the gym, but there's a bit of a shift in terms of the physique that I like the look the most of, that's not comp lean. It's still off season, but is, you've still got some, veins in your stomach, you've got some veins in your legs, you're still lean, you can still train hard, but there's definitely a difference between what you can do in the gym at that weight versus, say, 4 or 5 kilos heavier. And so I think it's a matter of you just working out where you need to fit, but also, when you come out of a prep, you think after 3 months, I feel amazing now. But then when you hit, for me at least, it's normally that 6 to 7 month mark that you really start to feel good again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think there's a point for me when I start to get close to my improvement season weight, where I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good here. Like aesthetically, I feel pretty good, which it doesn't really mind either way. But in the gym, I'm performing really, really well. I'm not hungry. I'm not food focused. I can go out and have a flexible meal, keep food on my plate. Don't really care. And that's probably like 1 or 2 kg before my improvement season weight. And anything after that is like, okay, now I feel pretty strong. And then if I go past that, I'll be like, now I feel a little bit uncomfortable. But
yeah, and I think that's the key. But also, I think if you're serious about bodybuilding, and we would both agree with this, I'm sure, I could care less if I'm a little bit fatter, but if I have to, be 101, 102, but I can do very, very different things at that weight than what I could do if I'm 97, 98, then I don't care.
Yeah.
For the sake of it. Because I know that when you go back on stage, whenever that next time is, for me, and I know that you're the same, it needs to be a different look.
Yeah, 100%.
And I would never want that to be compromised because I was too worried that I didn't want to go above this. And again, you don't want to get unnecessarily fluffy, but, and that's where I guess as well, sometimes putting in periodic periods of, a random cleanup. And I've been very public about, get in, get out hard and fast, in the improvement season, 4 max 5 week, little tidy ups where be aggressive, pull off a big chunk, and then see where you're at, see where you've acquired some tissue, and then get back to getting better.
Yeah.
It's bodybuilding, not body dieting.
What do you call those phases? I call them fluff cuts.
A fluff cut.
Fluff cut.
Fluff cut.
What do you call them? Just
I was
a fat loss phase? Yeah. Okay. Just tidy up.
Tidy up.
Fluff cut. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, before you went to Croatia. You did a little
Fluff
assertive
cut.
little
Yeah.
fluff cut.
Yeah, I did a fluff cut. Yeah. Yeah. And when I was there, I wasn't hungry, I wasn't food focused. Again, I was in a different environment too, and we were walking around a lot, but felt pretty good.
But there's this. Would you agree that you have everyone does have a set point where you can pull down to that certain roughly weight and
Yes.
composition, and then there's no real disturbance. But then you might just tip slightly below that, and it's like, I wonder what Scotty's ordered tonight, or like there's just it's not. I wouldn't say that it's drastically heightened, but there's a little bit more curiosity, and maybe
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to eating my next meal versus
Yeah.
now it's like I'll just eat whenever. You don't really care.
For me, that weight is around about 85, 86.
Okay.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah.
And remember, my off season is around about 90, 91,
Mhm.
right? So 5, 6 kilos lower.
Mhm.
That's pretty much what I got to before I went. I may have cracked even into the 84s
I think you
one or two
I
weigh-ins.
think you did. Yeah.
Yeah,
you said
one or
that
two
once.
weigh-ins right before the week before we left. But I
And
think I just wanted to give myself a little bit more leeway because the wedding was 2 weeks
And
after
Kiwi
that.
also said to you, not a lizard.
Oh yeah, I got told off. You look too skinny. I don't want you to be gaunt when in the photos. You're gonna look like death. Put more weight on your face. I got told off by her and my mum.
Yeah, I know. You were telling me that Kiki said if you lose any more, I'm going to
Yeah.
call Scotty.
She's like, if you lose any more weight, I'm gonna call Scotty. I'm like, all right, okay.
Oh,
Relax,
God.
relax. But then I come back and my mum still tells me, have you been losing weight? I'm like, no, I've never lost it. She literally told me that yesterday.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was like, no, I haven't lost any weight. Oh god. Okay. How do you come back from a big injury? Any success stories or advice for an athlete struggling with long rehabs? Man, touch wood, I haven't had any really big ones. I know I've done my back a long time ago, until maybe 10 years ago in the past, where I was doing a RDL and I actually felt like a pop, and I just dropped the weight and I was like, this is not good. And an instant kind of freeze up of my lower back, and I drove home and then had to lie on the floor for like 2 days.
Yeah, fuck.
But that's the worst I've ever had. And I don't honestly even remember what the rehab was like back then. It obviously didn't mentally affect me. But have you ever had any long rehabs that you required for an injury?
No, not resistance training, like broken wrist playing basketball when I was younger, but I'm actually going to have a little one because I'm going to have my hernia surgeries, which I'm not
Okay.
looking forward to. But I actually know the person who's asked this question.
Okay.
And his is pertaining to his shoulder injury. And I know he's been super frustrated, crazy physique. I'm spewing. He was going to do our pro show this year,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, his shoulder's just completely ruined. He's got bursitis. He's got tears. He needs a full clean out. And so I think having worked very, very closely with a lot of athletes that have done that rehab, and even, in the UK, working with, some really top tier rugby, and even seeing some of the premiership footballers, how they approach it, I think there's definitely an element of refusing to accept that, just because this has happened, this hasn't happened to me, it's happened for me. So as a result of this, I'm going to come back faster. I'm going to go and do this. But I think it helps if you have a plan, like straight away, knowing that, okay, this has happened now. Like I know even when Zach tore his bicep tendon again for like the third time, he like rang me straight away. He was in to have surgery within a couple of weeks, and we already had a plan. Like, this is what you're going to do. This is how we're going to approach the food. You're going to get a bit softer. We're going to feed you a bit more, and that's something that I would say is, post surgery, under eating is drastically, drastically compromises your recovery. It is the most important thing that you could do from a recoverability standpoint, because
Being a surplus?
being a surplus, yeah. And there's different debates on this, because people are like, what happens if you get too fat? Repairing and recovering from anything that's damaging to your physiology is an energy taxing endeavor. And so the one thing that you don't want to be compromised on, and that's energy availability. So bring your food up, your recovery is going to be better. You might be a little bit softer, but as physique athletes, and for me, I'm just like, that's easy. We can worry about that later. We'll clean that up later for the sake of you recovering better. And then, goal wise, you want to be able to get yourself to a position where you can get back into the gym, and that takes time, but you have to recover from the injury first. So for me, I would be like, all right, my surgery's on this date. This is roughly how long they're telling me that I'm going to be out for. And if I use Zach for an example, they said, yeah, you'll be able to deadlift again and you'll be back in like 9 months. And he was back pulling like high 200s within 6 months.
Oh, wow. How did he do it? The bicep? Was it
He
pulling?
super
Mixed
deadlifting on
grip?
the floor. Yeah. And now he only pull hit. And the worst thing about it is he had to learn how to hook grip.
So he's done double overhand hook?
Well, yeah, when you're competing, powerlifting, you can't use straps. So when he
Yeah,
would deadlift, he just have to learn the hook grip.
Yeah.
So his thumbs are fucked now, but
Yeah, because you crush your
his shoulders
shoulders.
are good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's honestly one of the reasons why I don't ever advocate for,
Mixed
pronated, supinated. I
Yeah.
always just go pronated. Use
I know I did it once a long time ago, and I was like, this does not feel good on my bicep. I was like,
No, especially as you think about it, as you're starting to pull heavier, like he's doing a 310, that's a lot of load that's going through there. But also the other side of it is a lot of people don't realize, but when you're mixed grip, you're pronated and then supinated on the other side, as you're coming up, your wrist positions are in different positions. So you're always going to have a slight element of rotation as well. That takes its toll, and you usually see the head of the humerus on one side pull further forward. So for me, and I think it teaches a better lat lock too, going pronated over.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
But yeah, so just have a plan, man. Map out what your recovery window is going to look like. Again, you're a switched on man, so I'm sure that you can devise what that will look like. Again, put it together, and then work out. Hopefully, align with your surgeons again without knowing too long, like how far they're saying that it is going to be till you can go back and train again. But more often than not, they're going to give you the worst case scenario. So I would always be like, if they're saying 6 months, I'm going to get back in 4 months, and even if it's 5,
still better. All right, let's leave it on this one. Have you ever guys thought about running a separate nationals from a state show, similar to how IFBB runs? So, if you do, for instance, next year's season C, we've got the nationals in Victoria. Would we ever do a Victorian state show separate to the nationals? Something that we have definitely thought about, and we tried to plan for, I know, for season C, but it just didn't work out from a venue perspective and dates. And you got to remember, like, there's so many shows. Obviously, we do a show in every single state. Plus, we've got to fit in a Bali show as well, maybe some other international shows. To throw in another one, to not clash with anyone else, and to make sure venues are available, it's sometimes a juggling act, as you know, Scotty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that we'll definitely look at, but we did look at it for next year, but it didn't really marry out.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I think when we think about that too, is we'd probably do it we'd probably start to do it only in a season C, just because we know those seasons are a lot bigger than A and B for mid-year. So to do that, remember, you might take a little bit from the nationals. You might take some competitors. So you got to make sure that if you are going to steal some numbers, you want to steal numbers that when you're in a bigger season. You wouldn't do it in winter or in autumn, in the autumn season. But yeah, great question. It's really good. All right, we're done. We'll leave it there. Hopefully MG is all good for next week, and we'll have him back.
Yeah, you might even be wearing an eye patch or sunglasses.
Before we finish, so I was clipping the podcast that we did at his gym, and he was wearing the sunnies, and I was doing those clips, those real clips. Man, he looks so gangster when he's got these sunnies. I can't wait for those clips to come out.
You know the photo that I took of him on the bus after nationals?
Yeah.
Whenever he rings me now, that's the photo.
Love it. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one.